You right-handed? Left-handed? Ambidextrous. Which one is it? How to figure it out at character generation if you're going to roll it, and what to do about it if you want to change it later. Back in a moment. Greetings again, Chumbas. This time I have a quick one on your character, of course, right-handed, left-handed? Is your character ambidextrous by some chance? And what does that mean in gameplay and game mechanics? How does that work? Well, I was as part of the preparing for this video, I was trying to find it in the life path and character generation. I thought there was a part in there. I was thinking there was a piece in there where you could roll right left-handed. I wasn't finding it. So I'm just going to give you the way that I've done it as a ref. If the player wanted to be right-handed or left-handed, that's fine. That's what their character is, right-handed, left-handed. If the player wants to be ambidextrous, that's a little bit more difficult because that gives you some other game benefits. So if they want to be ambidextrous, or if they just weren't sure which hand they want to be and they just want to roll it, let it be random, here's what I do. Die 10, of course. You get a die 10. If you get a 6 or less, you're right-handed, because right-handed is more common in general. 7, 8, 9, you're left-handed. Or a 10, if you do roll a 10, you're ambidextrous. Okay, so easy way, quite simple. Roll it out, determines that factor, and you can go on. Now, having determined that, what does that mean? Just like in real life, right-handed or left-handed means that right or left hand is your primary hand. Your other hand is your offhand. Whatever you do, you're going to do the best with your on hand, your primary hand. If you're right-handed, you're right hand. Okay. If you're firing a weapon, using a sword, playing baseball, whatever it is, doesn't matter. You're going to do it best with your primary hand. If you are forced for some reason, an injury or the situation or whatever it is, you're forced to use your offhand for doing a task, then you're going to have a penalty to that skill check for using your offhand. This includes if you want to try and use a weapon more than once in a single combat round. If you want to try to fire two guns at those weapons at the same time, and you have it in your offhand, you're going to have a penalty for that. Usually your second action is -3, third action makes it 3 more, -6, and so on. You also have the potential for difficulties if you're trying to shoot multiple targets or attack multiple targets. Also, even with martial arts and melee skills and so on, if you have ambidexterity, you can potentially use attack with both hands if you had single-handed weapons. You could potentially attack with both hands, giving you an extra additional attack, potentially. So, how does all that come out? Well, if you're right-handed, you're left-handed, we've discussed it. There it is. If you're ambidextrous, though, ambidexterity means that you can use your right hand or your left hand equally well. You are equally skilled. Basically, both hands would be considered primary for game mechanics. So you don't have the negative for using your offhand. So if in that case where you're injured or some reason you couldn't use your primary hand, you can go ahead and use your other hand. No penalty to that skill check. But this is where it gets fun. Being ambidextrous means you could fire, for example, firing a gun with either hand. Oh, a single-handed gun, not a weapon that takes more than one hand. But you could fire it with both hands equally well, so no penalty there. However, being ambidextrous naturally doesn't mean that you can do both hands at the same time without a penalty. Okay, just like real life, right? Just because you can use both hands equally well doesn't mean you can use both hands at the same time to perform even the same task of firing guns. However, what do you do about it? What you do about it is you get cyberware. Of course, this is Cyberpunk. What else are you going to do? Two basic options. Chromebook 1 and Chromebook 4 each give us slightly different variations on an option of what to do about it. And in some cases, and I'd almost dare say you may want both of these options. Now, the first one I'm going to talk about, I'm probably going to butcher the pronunciation, what it should be of this name, but it's called, this is Chromebook 4. This is page 22, Chromebook 4. The Dornier Bauer Technique. I don't know, probably pronouncing it wrong, but you can correct me in the comments, okay? Let me know. Give me a phonetic spelling or something so we can handle this, make sure this is correct for next time, right? But the Biotechnique Daniel Bauer Neural Bridge. And what this is, a piece of bioware, tailored for you. This is a piece of cyberware or bioware that effectively, well, as the book says, it's a bundle of nerve tissue, of cultivated nerve tissue that links the motor coordination areas of both sides of the brain, making you ambidextrous. In game mechanics, what this means is that you can perform, as I was saying, with natural ambidexterity, means you can perform tasks with either hand as if it was your primary hand. Now, with Neural Bridge, you still have that penalty if you're trying to perform a task with both hands at the same time. Single-headed test. So if you're trying to fire two guns at the same time, you still have that -3 applies because you're trying to do two. Not only are you using both hands, you can use either one equally well with the Neural Bridge, but to do it at the same time still gives you a negative, a penalty there. Now this one is a major surgery. Humanity cost is a die 6 plus 2. So there's some drawbacks there too. It's going to take some time. If you do this in character creation, most refs would you just have it. But if you do it in gameplay, then you're going to have some time for recovery. You're going to have hospital stay. All these things cost, in addition to the base €600 for the for the Neural Bridge itself. You've potentially got medical care afterwards, psychological care, all those things, depending on your ref, depending on how your game is run, that you'll have to pay for. So potentially quite a bit more expensive, possibly. But that's the Neural Bridge, right? Now, the other option is a piece of chipware. It's called, it's actually biofeedback chips is the heading for this type of chip. Now, the one thing here, you have to have a chipware socket to be able to use this particular cyberware. So it's a different kind of chip, right? Some refs that I've seen to use biofeedback chips require a certain kind of chipware socket. You can't just get the standard one. You have to get an advanced one. You have to get something else, which basically usually means more expensive, maybe harder to come by, possibly different recovery times, those kinds of things. But putting that part aside, you get past all that with your ref. You've handled how you're going to get. You've got the right kind of chipware socket that will handle this type of chip. In this case, it is the ambidexterity chip that we're referring to. Now, this is Chromebook 1. This is page 75. The ambidexterity chip will not only does it make you either hand work as a primary hand, but you can actually use both hands at the same time to do tasks, like firing a weapon, for example. Now, this one states it's a biochip, augments the user's motor control, rerouting control energies across the body, consequently making the user ambidextrous. Sounds like pretty much a very similar thing to what the BioWare does. The BioWare, though, actually modifies your biology to make you ambidextrous. This one is more electronic in that it is rerouting information through the chipware socket and so on. Anyway, to make you ambidextrous. Now, the way this one works, though, again, you can use two single-handed tools or weapons at the same time. So you can fire two firearms, two pistols, whatever, at the same time. Now, the only limitation to this part of it is you have to fire them at the same target. The idea being that although you can fire with both hands equally well, you don't have that penalty for doing two things at once. You're all good with all that. The chipware handles that. But you still can only focus and aim at one target at a time. If you can only focus on one target, so you have to be firing at the same spot, the same target, that kind of thing. Now, there is another option for this. If you have two cyber optics, then you can get a second chip that works specifically for the ambidexterity chip, a add-on for it, so to speak, a second chip though, so it takes up now 2 slots in your chipware socket. Yeah, but it will allow you to actually use each cyber eye independently for each hand. So you can actually be firing at 2 separate targets at the same time. No penalties. Cool stuff, right? So chipware socket depends on your ref, depends if you do the base one or not. We're not talking about chipware sockets in specifically right now, so I'm going to cost and humanity cost on that. Assuming you already had it, this chip is 800 euro by the book, and that secondary chip, if you were to get that, is, and again, it's only going to do any good if you have 2 cyber eyes, but that add-on chip is another 250 euro. Now I'd say it's well worth it for what the bonuses it gives you. I come back to that you may want to have both depending on your character plan, what your idea is, because this is still a chip. It could still fail. It could be damaged. EMPs can take out chip biofeedback, and other kinds of chips can be damaged or destroyed by EMPs or other situations that damage electronics. It could be removed. It could be stolen. These are all things that could happen to you. Whereas the narrow bridge is BioWare is actually implanted, so to speak. That one doesn't go away, bottom line. That one's not going to be affected by EMP. That one's not going to be affected by damage to electronics, that kind of thing. So it's not maybe not quite as good, but it has its benefits too. So that's where I say you might want to have both. With it being this chip, also, and the way this reads and the way I've played it, in this chip biofeedback chips like this do not have an additional humanity cost of their own. You took the humanity cost hit when you got the socket, so chips that are plugged in don't have additional cost. Some refs will play that differently. Some refs will have a flat for every chip. There's a particular cost that might have a 0.5, a 1, a 0.25, whatever that accounts for having those chips in place. But if you're not, and you've already got a chipware socket, no reason not to get the ambidexterity chip. No extra cost, it's just the extra euros to get it. So if your budget can do it, you ought to have one. That's what I'm saying anyway. All right, so that's what I wanted to say. That is it for talking about ambidexterity, right and left-handed. Have any more questions or anything else you want to go over on this? Drop it down in the comments. Let me know. Hit the subscribe, hit the like, do all that stuff YouTube wants you to do. I really appreciate that stuff very much. Helps me out, gets the word out. Let me help more people, more players. If you know anybody that's especially new to the game, having a question on a topic, on a skill, on a stat, piece of cyberware, anything, let me know. Drop in the comments again. Drop me a line one way or another, and I'll respond. I'll make a video, talk to them in chat, whatever we need to do to help them out. Thanks for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.